Hola. Today on the show I have a very special guest, Dr. S.K. Sharma, who is a renowned surgeon around the world, has over 40 years of experience in the field of urology, and who headed the Department of Urology in one of the most premier medical institutes in India, that is Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Chandigarh. He joins us here today to talk about various medical conditions and give us an insight into different disorders and diseases which are covered under urology. Hello, Dr. S.K. Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
Today on the show, we are discussing the condition called benign enlargement of the prostate, and it is a common condition seen in elderly patients. So I would like to begin by asking you that what is exactly this benign enlargement of the prostate?
Actually, prostate is a very important part of the genitourinary system. So after the age of 50 years, it begins to enlarge, and when it enlarges, it's in the urinary passages, so it might produce some symptoms, obstruction to the flow of urine, and that in fact is the reason people come for medical attention because of these urinary symptoms. As I said, it's a very important part of the genitourinary system in the male, and usually the enlargement begins histologically by the age of third decade, the 30 years. But symptoms appear only after the age of 50 or 55. And the prostate plays a very important role in the sexual and reproductive function in the male.
So how does a patient with benign enlargement of the prostate present? What are the common signs and symptoms which are seen?
The common symptoms are either obstructive or irritative. The obstructive symptoms are thin stream, prolonged urination time, sense of incomplete voiding, and the irritative symptoms are frequency, urgency, urge incontinence. But these symptoms do not occur in all the males. It might occur in about 35 to 40% of the people, the rest do not. But the enlargement occurs. The irritative symptom, which I refer to, urgency, frequency, urge incontinence. Urgency is that patient suddenly gets a sudden desire to pass urine. He rushes to the toilet. And sometimes even before he reaches the toilet, urine might leak. He might soil his clothes. And frequency is that normally a person should void about 4 or 5 times during day and maybe once or twice during night. If anyone who voids more than 3 or 4 times during night is the normal. Anyone who voids many times during day, more than 6 or 7 times, is the normal. So the patient is always advised to maintain a voiding diary. That means how many times in 24 hours he voids, and what is the pattern of voiding, whether there is a slow stream, thin stream, prolonged urination time, or there is urgency, urge incontinence, and frequency. All these symptoms are noted, and then a decision is made to investigate the patient. The enlargement we grade according to the size of the prostate. Grade 1 is when the prostate is about 20 grams, and grade 2 is 20 to 40 grams in size. Grade 3 is 40 to 60 grams, and anything beyond 60 grams is grade 4. And the symptoms, to measure the symptoms, there are certain parameters. There is an International Prostatic Symptom Score, which goes from 0 to 35. So 0 to all these symptoms are graded, like 0 to 7 is mild symptoms, 8 to 19 is intermediate systems, and 20 to 35 are severe symptoms. So the patient, when the patient presents to the doctor, this frequency, urgency, urgent incontinence, and poor flow can be because of many other conditions, like the patient has gone radiotherapy, or patient has got congestive cardiac failure, or is a diabetic. So all these conditions should be ruled out before you make a diagnosis of benign enlargement of the prostate. And prostatic enlargement is measured. You make a clinical examination of the patient. You look for the enlargement of prostate, look at the genitalia, whether the bladder is palpable or not, and when you do the digital rectal examination, you can find how the prostate feels, what is the size, and then you make a diagnosis of enlargement of prostate.
So, how is the condition diagnosed in a patient? What are the tests and examinations that are done?
Like the routine examination, like hemogram, renal function test, urine routine, urine culture, PSA, ultrasound examination, all these tests, they help the clinician to make a diagnosis of enlargement of prostate. Along with other routine tests, the PSA should also be done. PSA means prostate specific antigen. The normal PSA goes up to 4 nanograms per milliliter.
So, what is considered as a high PSA?
Any PSA more than 4 nanograms per milliliter is called abnormal. To establish the diagnosis of benign enlargement of prostate, digital rectal examination, PSA, and ultrasound, which looks after the kidneys, bladder volume, post-void residual, and size of the prostate. All these measurements help to make it. The ultrasound examination of the abdomen provides information about all organs in the abdomen, including kidneys, bladder volume, post-void residual, and enlargement of the prostate. Normally when the patient voids and if he has no obstruction, the post-void residual may be 10 or 20 cc, that's normal. But any residual, post-void residual that's more than 30 cc, 40 cc, it's abnormal. That means the prostatic obstruction is the cause of post-void residue.
We have learned all about the signs and symptoms of this condition and how to diagnose it. So, next is, what are the treatment modalities for this condition?
As I said earlier, that there is a measure to see the degree of botheration that the patient is having. The International Prostatic Symptom Score, if it is from 0 to 7, then it's just waitful watching. You do nothing. But if the symptoms are from 8 to 19, that's intermediate, then medical treatment can be given to the patient. And if the symptoms are very severe, that's from 20 to 35, then you can try medical treatment, but if the medical treatment fails, surgical options have to be offered to the patient. And all these decisions are made in close consultation with the patient and his relations.
What all is included in medical treatment of the condition?
The medical treatment includes alpha blockers, because there is a great aggregation of alpha adrenergic receptors in the bladder neck, prostate, and posterior urethra, and all these things lead to tension, and that is the reason obstruction of the flow of urine. So if you block these alpha adrenergic receptors, then the tension, the bladder neck relaxes, and the patient is able to pass urine comfortably. So in this class of drugs, we have the alpha blockers, which is the like alfuzosin. This is 10 milligram tablet, and the patient is advised to take one tablet daily after dinner. Because sometimes the patient might develop headache, dizziness, so we recommend that the patient takes during night, so in the morning when he gets up, he is fine. And in elderly patients, we give them Temsolution, like Urimax. And now there's a new group of drugs called Silodosin. These drugs are very effective, help the patient to pass urine effectively. And when the patient is young and his sexual functions and reproductive functions are important to the patient, then we give them only alfuzosin, because that doesn't disturb the sexual function. But Temsolution and Silodosin, they might affect the sexual function, might produce dry ejaculation. So they should be given only in the elderly patients, not in young patients. All these alpha blockers are given when the prostate size is about 30-40 grams. If the prostate size more than 60 grams or more than 40 grams, then we can also give 5 alpha reductase inhibitors, that is finasteride or dutasteride. Finasteride is available and it's given with alpha blockers, or dutasteride, that's 0.5 milligrams, is given with alpha blockers. This helps the patient's size to become smaller, and this indirectly helps the patient to improve urination. And sometimes, in the younger people who are sexually active, we might even add PD5 inhibitors. So, like tadalafil, tadalafil, about 10 milligrams on alternate days. And this helps the patient to pass urine comfortably, and also helps the patient to maintain his sexual functions.
Tell us about the surgical options available to treat these patients.
Benign enlargement of the prostate. There was a time when open surgical interventions used to be the only option, but since the last 30-40 years, or even 50 years, the transurethral resection of the prostate, is called TURP, is the gold standard. But of late, there have been new interventions like lasers. Laser prostatectomy gives the same results as the old gold standard TURP.
So what exactly is done in the TURP procedure?
In TURP, we endoscopically judge the enlargement of the prostate and then try to reduce the benign enlargement of the prostate. The total prostate is not removed in TURP. It's only the prostate that's obstructing, and it's removed from bladder neck up to verumentinum, so that patient's continence is maintained. If you unfortunately go beyond verumentinum, the patient becomes incontinent. So all these things have to be kept in mind.
Are there any complications associated with these surgical procedures?
Yes, the complications associated with the surgical procedure could be hemorrhage, which might require blood transfusion, or sometimes even infection can occur, and in due course, very small percentage of patients might develop strictures of the urethra or the bladder neck contracture, and then they might need a second look and maybe some sort of a procedure to set those right.
So what would you say is the percentage of patients who develop complications?
No, it's a very small percentage, no? Very small. And post TURP or post laser prostatectomy, patients don't ejaculate because there's a retrograde ejaculation. So many people come, so they have to be explained before surgery that the ejaculation might not be there after prostate surgery.
For some time,
No,
temporarily.
not temporary. It may not be there at all. Because normally when the patient has sex, the bladder neck closes, and that's the reason that when the semen comes to the prostatic urethra, it is thrown out. But when the bladder in prostate operations, the bladder neck is resected, it becomes incompetent. Then the semen goes into the bladder and the patient passes the semen with urination.
Okay.
So that's the retrograde ejaculation.
With all the surgical procedures, there's a minimal chance of certain complications which can occur. But what if the patient is left untreated?
Patient left untreated means he is all the time obstructed. So obstruction might lead to continuing urinary tract infections. It might lead to weakness of bladder, that's atonic bladder, and patient may not be able to pass urine. Also, over a period of time, it might lead to renal failure and development of kidney stones. Sometimes they may be bleeding, hematuria. So all these complications can happen if the patient is left untreated.
Are there any dietary precautions that a patient with BPH should take?
As I said in the beginning, is a part of aging process, and as the population of old people is increasing with increased longevity, we are going to see more of these patients. But patients with diabetes, hypercholesterolemia are more prone to develop enlargement of prostate. So all these people, if they control diabetes, if they control their cholesterol and improve their dietary habits, do yoga, this can possibly help in preventing bad consequences of prostatic enlargement.
But what about smoking and drinking?
Smoking and drinking doesn't have much role in this.
Thank you, Dr. S.K. Sharma. That was a very extensive discussion on the topic and is going to be very helpful to somebody who is suffering from the condition. We thank you so much for sparing your valuable time to share all of these facts about the condition with us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I have enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.